The business relationship between an artist and their patron has always been a precarious and oftentimes contentious one. For the most profitable, popular, and controversial works of art have questioned, mocked, or exposed the very patrons paying for it. Michelangelo famously painted his patron, the controversial Pope Julius II's portrait, in his Sistine Chapel masterpiece, Surrounded by Myers, with an old-fashioned snarky hand gesture called the fig in his direction. William Shakespeare's body of work portrays the petulance and unconscionably selfish lifestyles only the privileged and rich could afford. Charles Dickens forever immortalized the insanity of gratuitous wealth at the expense of child labor in the epicenter of Christianity, in his cautionary tale, A Christmas Carol. In our modern times, Charles Spencer Chaplin will be the first in a long line of filmmakers to wield the cinematic sledgehammer of influence, exposing the same truths of the privileged and wealthy. Born during one of the most inhumane and belligerent times of wealth disparity in human history, 1889, the Victorian era in Great Britain. First abandoned by his father, then his mother suffered from mental illness until she could no longer care for Charlie, who was just 10 years old at the time. Chaplin stumbled in and out of child labor houses or in trouble with the law, receiving a graduate degree in the suffering of the working class. Charlie Chaplin found refuge in comedy, the stage, and in rewriting the painful events of his childhood. Chaplin discovered vaudeville first, then physical comedy, leading him to New York and eventually Hollywood, California. It is here, at the dawn of cinema, 1914, in the short film The Kid Auto Races at Venice, that Charlie Chaplin will invent one of the most timeless characters in all media history, the tramp. Shabby, unfitted pants, clown-like shoes, broken cane, mangy, a bit of a buffoon, and above all, poor. The tramp is charming, deeply empathetic, with a peculiar relationship with law enforcement. Intoxicatingly entertaining, Charlie used the tramp character as a sounding board for corruption, imposters, and the conceited nature of people in high society. The tramp's satire and mockery made Chaplin a type of superhero for the poor, unseen working people, catapulting him to international fame and opulent wealth. Chaplin will financially free himself from the shackles of New York and the rich by co-founding his own studio, United Artists, on February 5, 1919, with Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and D.W. Griffith. Liberated both financially and creatively, one of Charlie Chaplin's first works under the United Artists banner, The Kid, 1921, mirrored the national recession of the working poor class. The rich owned a whopping 40% of the country's wealth. With unemployment at a steady low, most working poor simply could not afford to live with national low wages, similar to the economic hardships experienced by the working class today. In The Kid, Charlie combines humor with drama in his first hour-long feature. The tramp is just one step ahead of the law, willing to take on the establishment, and refuses to give up on the ones he loves. Mirroring his own orphan childhood experience, the deeply personal DNA of The Kid has transcended time and is still a cathartic and relevant experience today. The global popularity of Charlie Chaplin will undoubtedly garner the attention of the establishment. Similar to the corrupt billionaire class of today, the establishment of the time elected to suppress Charlie rather than change. Instead, choosing to enlist the most powerful, deplorable, and racist man in American history, J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover perceived Charlie Chaplin as a parlor Bolshevik, understanding cinema as one of the greatest, if not the very greatest, influence upon the culture and the heart of America. For Chaplin, the land of the free and home of the brave could not possibly fear the truth. Modern Times, 1936, Charlie's last silent film. The tramp will take on his greatest challenge, modern society. a fitting farewell to a beloved character. The tramp's inability to just fit in lends itself to an endless fish-out-of-water romp. Specifically, the tramp struggles with working-class life. A combination of Charlie's unique brand of tramp comedy and a stronger helping of satire, this darker, more dramatic work brings to light the deplorable working conditions for minuscule pay endured by millions. Charlie's uncanny ability to cinematically represent satire and drama, such as playing a waiter unable to keep his balance, do his job, find his way, all while enduring the pressure cooker of serving the rich. The tramp finds incarceration a saner choice. 3 meals a day, a place to sleep, shelter, and no one breathing down his neck. Chaplin will use the tramp's need to fit in and find happiness by exploring new outlets. Like most Americans, the tramp gets swept up in ideologies such as supporting a union strike. But perhaps the most disturbing to the establishment was the female empowerment of modern times love interest, Ellen. As the 1930s economy limped out of depression and into a recession-ridden decade, women joined the workforce in the first major wave of gender equality. Ellen never relies on a man. In fact, she gets the tramp work, helps him find food and shelter, and helps him pursue his dream. Much more as an equal than had been traditionally seen in cinema. The fantasy sequence in modern times echoes profoundly today. The longing to have a normal job and be able to afford a home and a livable lifestyle could only be a distant daydream. For the tramp's final farewell, Charlie embraces the advent of sound, performing a gibberish version of Léo Danadorf's popular comical song Je cherche après Titine, in the tramp style, of course. The The 2019 film Joker creates haunting similarities to the working conditions everyday Americans experienced in Chaplin's modern times. The wealth disparity leaves little option for happiness, equality, or decency, causing the desperate, disturbed clown to snap. For all the lights, glitz, and glamour that was Charlie Chaplin, his indecent relationships with underage women, even if legal by the law of the times, is a deep character blemish. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover began his dismantling of Chaplin by enlisting gossip columnist Hedda Hopper. Hoover broke several federal laws to have Chaplin followed, set up, wiretapped, bugged, collecting about 1,377 pages of documentation. All the ammunition Hedda will need to feed her 20 million insatiable weekly listeners. Chipping away at Charlie's name, credibility, and popularity. But it would take a foe far more sinister to truly bring down the king of cinema.